1.
Good afternoon. I'm Vice Mayor Shanika Smith and the Chair of Boards and Commissions Committee. I'd like to welcome you all to our November 15th remote meeting. All council committee members and staff are participating virtually. To help our audience follow along, I'll state each section of the agenda aloud. We're streaming live on our Virtual Engagement Hub link, which is accessible through the Virtual Engagement Hub link on the front page of the city website. We also have the option for the public to listen live by phone. For those who are out there listening, hello and welcome today. For today's meeting, we have the option for people to call in and comment live during the meeting. To call in and comment live, use the number 855-925-2801, meeting code 9478. Your phone will be muted and you will hear the meeting live. At that point, the speakers will need to push *3 to enter the speaker queue. I'll now go through and introduce everyone participating with us today, staff and committee members. Just give a quick hello. Councilwoman Antoinette Mosley.
Hello.
Councilwoman Kim Roney.
Good afternoon.
Deputy City Clerk Sarah Gross.
Hello.
Assistant Clerk Jerry Goldberg.
Hello.
From our City Manager's office, we have Ben Woody.
Good afternoon.
And my script is not updated today, but from our Equity and Inclusion office, we have Elena Smith.
Hello.
And also Brenda Mills.
Good afternoon.
All right, we'll move on to our agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from October the 11th?
I move that the minutes be accepted as presented. Second.
Okay, I'll do a roll call vote for approval. Councilwoman Mosley.
Aye.
Councilwoman Roney.
Aye.
And myself, aye. The motion carries for the approval of minutes. Do we have anyone in the speaker queue for public comment?
We do. One moment, please.
Hi, this is Grant Millen, and I have been participating in the Boards and Commissions realignment work group since February. And it's really good that we got a survey happening. I call it Survey 1 Experiences. And there's a lot of insight in there. And Sarah should be congratulated as assisting us and making many of the previous meetings happen that were City of Asheville directed and managed more. However, it's become we are kind of out on our own, and I've asked many times, where are you all, the Boards and Commissions committee members, you Vice Mayor, Antoinette and Kim, and this is really an opportunity. This realignment work group is an opportunity to talk about transformation work. I'm not really getting a chance to talk about the things I like about the council committee transformation plan that is new business item A on today's full council meeting agenda. We are allowed, one of the things I want to say is we were given that plan, the beginnings of that plan, including things like what is now called the Environment and Safety Committee. We were shown that, and it was sort of like, it's for information for the realignment work group, but really you guys should just be talking about the volunteer advisory boards. And that's a term you all started to use, and I think it's a good term because the council committees are advisory boards but then there's the volunteer advisory boards. They're both boards and commissions going on. I think it's good to call the citizen volunteers, volunteer advisory boards. So my time's almost up, but this is a really good opportunity to work through issues like changing the public safety committee. I vocalized how that wasn't that you exposed some of us to that idea, but the public was not. We don't know what the feedback was or how that was garnered, but that was not what I call an open design thinking process. So I would not go there I've given you options for creating an experimentation transformation council group, but let the professionals with public safety continue there. So I just wanted to share that there's your transformation efforts, they have promise, and the realignment work group is a great example of engaging with the public and getting smart people helping you all, not doing what an elected official does per se, but engaging. And we could have worked out the public safety ideas and getting to root causes differently. And I encourage you all to postpone that change with the safety committee. But thanks.
Okay, is there anyone else?
There are no more callers in the queue.
Okay, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which will be the November appointments. We have a few appointments that we're going to have to re-advertise for, but I'll just go down the row. We'll start with Audit Committee. We have 2 vacancies, but no applications received. So the clerk's office will re-advertise. We're encouraging folks to reach out to their networks because we need a few CPAs. I think this is maybe our 3rd or 4th try without any applications received. We'll move on to the Homeless Initiative Advisory Committee. We have 1 vacancy, and there's a recommendation from the chair to postpone the appointment so that they can recruit from some of the missing sectors. We'll move on to Human Relations Commission. There were no eligible applications received. For Multimodal Transportation Commission, there is a vacancy for the transit interest seat. And the staff and chair are going to recommend postponement also for this commission so that the full board can put forth a recommendation. I don't think they've reviewed all the applications. For the Noise Advisory Board, I make a motion to appoint the staff recommendation of David Ledger. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, I'll do a roll call vote for approval. Councilwoman Mosley.
Aye.
Councilwoman Roney.
Aye.
Myself, motion carries. For the Public Art and Cultural Commission, I'll make a motion to appoint the board's recommendation of Pat Capes. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, I'll do a roll call vote for approval. Councilwoman Mosley.
Aye.
Councilwoman Roney.
Aye.
Myself, aye. The motion carries. And for reparations, HACA is recommending the appointment of Eric Robinson and Tamara Miller, and I'll move on those recommendations. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, I'll do a roll call vote for approval. Councilwoman Mosley.
Aye.
Councilwoman Roney.
Aye.
Myself, motion carries. That covers our November appointments.
I did have a question about that last one. It seemed like there were some missing connections in whether or not the applicant, Tamara Miller, was in the city limits or the county. There were 2 different kinds of answers. Did we clarify that she is, in fact, in the South Side and in the city limits?
Brenda, are you able to advise on that since the reparations?
For reparations, candidates can come from either city or county, the city of Asheville or Buncombe County. I don't know about her residency. I didn't look her address up. I can do that now if you would like, but she's okay to be, and we accept that from the neighborhood recommendation.
Thank you.
If that's okay, yeah.
Any more questions about appointments? All right, if not, we'll move on to the recommended amendments to the HRCA ordinance. Elena is presenting. Hey, Elena, how are you?
Good afternoon. Happy to be here. Thank you. All right. I'm providing a little bit of background on the HRCA membership structure and how it came to be. Sarah's going to be presenting the screen for me, so I'll just say next slide when I need you to move on, Sarah. Thank you. Next slide. So City Council established the Blue Ribbon Committee task force, which was designed or charged with creating the Human Relations Commission mission, duties, membership structure for the HRCA. The Blue Ribbon Committee was established in July of 2017, and they met 11 times from August 2017 to January 2018. During that time and following 2 sessions of community feedback, the Blue Ribbon Committee finally presented their recommendations on establishing the HRCA to City Council in February of 2018. And then the City Council established the Human Relations Commission based on their recommendations in July of 2018. Next slide, please. The Blue Ribbon Committee's final recommendations included a 15-member board of city residents, and you can see their final recommendation included in your materials, and it will also be on the following slide. This was the information that I was able to find with a thorough search of files regarding how they came to the recommendation that the Blue Ribbon Committee proposed. Next slide, please. So this is just a piece from their final recommendation, highlighting the key points of interest regarding membership structure for the HRCA. The full final recommendation is included in your materials. But they recommended a 15-member committee or a 15-member commission for the HRCA of city residents with close ties to the community that is most impacted by racism, oppression, and inequity in the city of Asheville. Next slide. The HRCA is still currently a 15-member commission per the ordinance, and the commission struggled to fill vacancies with active members. So the HRC has not currently had a 15-member capacity or been at a full 15-member capacity since February of this year. And then in their October HRCA meeting, the commission voted unanimously to recommend an update to the ordinance, reducing the total membership to 9. Down from 15. There's currently 11 members on the HRCA out of the 15 total seats. And this recommendation includes retaining the existing members if council chooses to amend the ordinance to reduce it to 9. Next slide, please. And so based on this information, we have 2 actions requested. The first being vote to recommend amending Ordinance 4663, establishing the HRCA to reduce the total number of members from 15 down to 9. And the second being to consider whether City Council would like to amend Ordinance 4663 to remove the residency requirement for HRCA membership, allowing members to come from both the city residents and from Buncombe County residents. Next slide, please. So regarding that first requested action, a suggested motion is to move to recommend amending Ordinance 4663 to change the number of Human Relations Commissions to a 9-member board. And then regarding that second piece, we're just asking that City Council consider whether they would like to amend the ordinance regarding residency requirements or not. So I do not have a suggested motion for that one. And that's all. Thank you. Do y'all have any questions?
Kim.
I guess my first curiosity is that we currently have 11 members. Why not reduce the number to 11? And my thinking around that also includes, we have a rather large group of identities and experiences that we attempt to recruit to inform our recommendations coming from this group. And if we make the number too small, it may be hard to make sure that we have those experiences at the table.
So the Human Relations Commission did have some discussion around the number of members at the previous meeting, which is recorded if anyone is interested in going back to hear some of the points that were brought up. And I believe the chair brought up the participation in the Human Relations Commission for even those that are members. There's not always active participation at that high of a number, even at 11 seats filled. And therefore, the idea to move down to 9 was to encourage having those 9 seats be filled by more active members.
Yeah, I am familiar with that conversation, but I also think that it's on us to make sure that we not just think about what the current position is of the group, but also the future of the group, which is why when I think about that list of all the different experiences that we attempt to recruit and to have at the table, we have to think about not just what's happening right now. So I would be prepared to make a motion that we could change the language, but I would change it to 11 and not 9.
Are there any further questions?
No, I'm prepared to make a motion as suggested. Is that okay, Madam Chair?
Make the motion.
I move to recommend amending Ordinance 4663 to change the Human Relations Commission of Asheville to a 9-member board.
And I'll second that motion. I'll second that motion and do a roll call vote for approval. Councilwoman Mosley,
Aye.
Councilwoman Roney,
No.
and myself, aye. The motion carries. And we'll bring the recommendation to larger council about the residency requirement. Thank you, Elena. All right, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, and that is, Dal was going to do an overview on the Inclusion and Accessibility Government Project.
Good afternoon, Vice Mayor and council members. It's nice to see you all today. I have just a brief overview of a project that you all awarded through our ARPA funding, and one that has the potential to touch into boards and commissions as the project progresses over the next 2 years. So I will be coming back to you with a more in-depth presentation in January. And so any insight that you have to these 4 components that you'd like to know a little bit more about, if you want to let me know here today, I can make sure that we really go into more detail where it's most helpful for you all when I come back in January. So what is the project? It's our ARPA Inclusive and Accessible Government project. We are very excited about this. This is more than a decade's worth of input that we've heard that we are now being able to operationalize in a new way with this additional funding. So it's really exciting both for our strategic communications staff, our project managers, and then within our department, our neighborhood services folks, that we're going to be able to take input that we've heard from the community and continue to work with them to provide something that's meaningful to them. So this project has 4 different components. And again, it was based off of input that we've heard at the on the ground level and then through a number of different engagement efforts over the years. So those 4 components are, we know that we need to do a better job with our Spanish and Russian presence. So part of this project is bringing on a communication specialist that will be focused on language accessibility. I'm happy to say that that person has been hired. And we're really excited to have them get their feet firmly on the ground. We expect that the first process improvement that they will be tackling is how we communicate about opportunities for accessibility and language issues for public meetings. So that's something that we don't have standardized across the organization. We know that we need to, and we expect that that will be one of their first projects as they come on board. So that's if people need any kind of accessibility accommodations for a public meeting and or translation services. Lots more in that scope of work for that person, but that is one of the components of this project. Another component is the upfit of community spaces for access to decision making. So if we want to reflect back on the reparations speaker series, where we had a big community meeting where people came to one common place, we also knew that there's barriers that keep people from being able to come, travel, to participate in a meeting, and to be able to pipe them in from a space where they feel accepted and comfortable is really important to our overall portfolio. So the second component is creating some spaces that are identified in the community as places where we can invest some technology so that we can do more of that, more of what we were able to do in the reparations speaker series. So that's part two, the community space upfits. Third component is our Community Engagement Academy. We're going to continue that with a major goal of that component of the project is to work through different scenarios and different contextual information with community members who can then be a resource for us to reach out to when we know that we're missing certain voices from conversations. So we would then be able to work with this group of people that have been through the academy, pay them to help support, and go out and get more input when we know we're missing that input from different groups. That's the third component. And then the fourth one is the one that may be most germane to this particular committee. And that is the launch of virtual and hybrid meetings as a new tool in the city's engagement portfolio. So we all know we had to jump in with both feet to this whole virtual hybrid world with city council meetings back during the pandemic. That was not our intention when we launched this project, but we pivoted and we were able to provide that need in our community. And now what we want to do is go back to where we had intended to begin, and that was with community meetings, to do more hybrid meetings if we're getting engaged or asking for input from our entire community, to be able to have people call in, send in things through email, be there in person, have paper surveys, have kiosks where we can have folks go out into community. That whole facet that we've not been able to explore because we pivoted towards how do we do a virtual city council meeting. So our intention is to start with community meetings and then look with direction from this committee and council as a whole, if there are thoughts about how we tackle boards and commissions across the board as far as hybrid or virtual goes. And then finally, if it is the council's will for us to explore what any council options might look like on down the road, we would look to city council to give us that direction before we get too far into what the opportunities are. So I apologize. I know it's a big project that's got lots of little pieces, but we do believe that they're meaningful pieces and they're really oriented towards what we've been hearing from community. So we hope filling in these gaps might help how inclusive and accessible really all of our communication efforts are moving down the road.
So you're going to take in community input to decide which community spaces will get upfit?
Yes, ma'am. And it's going to be I think I may not have mentioned, this is a 2-year project. So right now, so it launched this fiscal year, or as soon as we got the funding, we're scoping out the details, but that detail has been decided upon, that it'll very much be a community-driven effort, because our goal is to meet people where they already are, rather than asking them to come to a new space where they may or may not feel comfortable.
So when that technology is put in place, it can be used by the community for community-related events as well as city-related stuff?
Yeah, that is the intention. We do know that we have some, we need to look at every single detail within the ARPA guidelines to make sure that we're meeting all of those. But the intention is, yes, that resource will be there. There will be some kind of agreement about how that resource is maintained and how long it needs to be maintained to meet the requirements of the funding. But yes, it's to complement any of the needs that the community might already have. All right.
Kim?
Yeah, I have a couple questions about hybrid meetings. So I know of at least 2 board and commission meetings where the conversation around being able to participate was more complex than just meeting in virtually or meeting in person. One was the Human Relations Commission, where we heard members say that if we move back to in-person, they would have issues with childcare, for example, and transportation. Another one was the HIAC, the Homeless Initiative Advisory Committee. In both of those situations, if we don't have a supermajority present, we have a quorum but not a supermajority, then the default is to move to in-person. So in the Homeless Initiative Advisory Committee, it was 6-1 to go to virtual meetings, but because they didn't have a supermajority present, it defaults to in-person. In that situation, we may have future issues with quorum, and I think ultimately it gets to the spirit of how the motion passed council for the new rule changes, that we needed to look for hybrid options. So my curiosity is, how close are we to being able to consider that for groups that were like so close on the line of not being able to meet the needs of all of its members, either virtually or in person?
Thank you. I really appreciate that question. And this is really helpful for me. I may not be able to answer all of these questions right now because we are still in that scoping area and we're just hiring the staff, the additional staff that we're going to need. I can say with that media engagement coordinator who will be leading this part, we have done our first round of interviews. And so we're getting closer to having that person on board. The milestone that we're looking to meet is by the end of this calendar year. And then they'll be spending the next couple of months really getting to know public input, the software platform that we use, and then getting to know the AV technology that's associated with it. And I expect within that next 3 to 6 month range, we'll have a better idea of what it will take to be able to consistently and professionally host a hybrid meeting. It can be done. There's just some pieces to it, and then making sure that we understand what the staff commitment is going to be and that we've got the resources to do that, and then have backups in case somebody's sick. It's all those little pieces that they'll be considering as they put together what their proposal is for how we move forward. So so the issues with quorum are some of the compelling reasons for boards and commissions being hybrid relate to issues with quorum, and I'm happy to take any of those other considerations down and can pass that on to the new team member who's going to take a deep dive without being distracted in 100 different ways into how we.
The question would be, if I know of 2, because I happen to be the liaison to those groups, do we have a running list of which groups maybe had concerns, questions? They were willing to hold off for a period of time. I know we asked them to hold off for a whole year. But like, I know HIAC is asking, are they allowed to revote? Like, these rules are our rules. I understand from the attorney's office that we could allow them to revote in their next meeting, and so they could get an actual valid vote based on our rules. But do we have just a list for future staff member of which boards need to be like prioritized so that we can try to keep the members that we have and retain people?
So I'll let Sarah ask this. This is where our 2 workloads kind of connect.
And I don't know that there's a specific list specific to what you're asking. There is a list that says who decided to go virtual, who decided to go in person, so that we can notice those regular scheduled meetings. But to the point you mentioned, there is the opportunity to revote if that should change. One of the reasonings behind the majority vote for in-person or virtual was just so that we could be consistent as far as for the community and the members to know what to expect if they were regularly meeting in person and or virtually. So there is the opportunity to change that, but we do want to stray away from making it every other meeting, just so we can provide some
sure.
assistance.
I guess to give an example, if a majority of the group voted to go virtual, in this case, HIAC, but on the technicality of they were missing one person, it has to be in person. They may end up having difficulty with future quorum issues when the majority did vote to go virtual. So what do we do in a situation like that when really, I don't think that was the heart of our rule, was to force groups to do something difficult based on a technicality?
Definitely, I would agree with that. I would say that there is the opportunity to revote when they have the ability to ensure that it truly is the majority vote that wants to do in person and or.
Okay, so then I would say that instead of just a yes, no, if you have a way to keep track of like, if it was close, if a group was like barely on the edge, then that might give us an idea of where we would need to move in the future. Instead of creating more work later for someone else to go dig through minutes, it might help when we're at this initial phase.
Like that, we can build that in.
Yeah. And I think that what I want to just test that what I'm hearing is on track. It's sounding to me, both with the community upfit spaces as well as this hybrid meeting, really thinking about where the greatest need is and prioritizing those is going to be an important part of executing those components of the project. For example, on the upfit piece of it, we've got our climate justice tool that shows us where some of our most vulnerable neighborhoods are. And we've discussed as a team, should we be going there first to make sure that there's spaces where they can get emergency information in addition to participate in government decision making. And so I'm wondering if that's on track with the same concept for our hybrid meetings. And that's just to notice where there's already a greatest need. And that I think we've got some insight into some of those boards and commissions that had a close vote. And we might want to prioritize them because the need's there as we look into what implementing hybrid meetings could look like. Does that sound like I'm on track there?
Any other questions for Dawn? Okay, we'll move on to Sarah. You have an update on realignment?
Yeah, and also one of the things I wanted to add, actually, that kind of builds on what Dot was talking about as far as accessibility of our meetings. One of the new upgrades or features we are able to now offer for in-person meetings that are held in the first floor conference room, we are now able to stream those so that community members can watch that live rather than having to attend the meeting to watch it live. So that's a new upgrade. There was a media release earlier last week, and we are training staff on how to use that in that first floor conference room. So I just wanted to make that announcement here. And then secondly, update on the realignment working group. Exciting stuff. I've been mentioning this survey for a couple of months now, and we were able to launch it or distribute it last Thursday on the 10th. It went to nearly 350 past and current boards and commission members. It is set to close on December 9th, which could be extended if we don't get the response right. But I can tell you, looking at a report generated today, that we have had about 75 people actually take the survey. Looking at it, it's about 55% of those who took it are current members. So there might be some outreach looking at those past members as well. So there will be a lot more information to come as survey results come in. As a city or as city staff, I guess we are kind of more or less waiting for those survey results before we plan for what next phase or meetings will look like for this group. But however, the group, and as Mr. Millen mentioned, a lot of the members are still meeting regularly, and we are posting the agendas and that information, which is all on the project page. The next meeting is actually this Thursday at 5:30 virtually, if anyone wants to view that. I believe that Sunshine is live streaming those meetings. So trying to think if I missed anything. Lots more information to come on the survey as we get the results in. And I think that's it for me.
Okay. And then there's a reminder for the public and the committee that we won't have a meeting in December. We'll resume in January. Is there anybody in the speaker queue for public comment?
Sorry, my computer went to sleep. 1 second. There's no callers in the queue.
All right, any other comments from staff or the committee? All right, meeting adjourned.